Hi, it's Tansel here. Today I'm going to show you how I memorize names. I'm going to be using a website called Memory League, and in that website they have five different events, usually in the memory competitions, but I'm just going to go through names today just so we can see how I memorize. So here I click through the names, so it's just a test. So they give you names, first names online, and one by one I'm just flicking through and memorizing them. Now I've done this before, so it's just a commentary over the top, and it's just essentially to give you an idea of how I go about memorizing names. So on this platform, it gives you 20, 30 names, something like that, in about a minute, and you have to try and memorize as many as you can. So as you can see here, I'm just flicking through them bit by bit, maybe a few seconds each name, try and memorize them. And as I go through, I'm making some sort of a story because that's how we memorize essentially the names. So I'm just going through them one by one. I'm making up little stories, and I'll go through those stories as well, just so you can see what I'm doing exactly, and we can sort of understand further about how to remember names and make them stick. So I'm just going into the recall phase now. So I've just gone into this name, Yong, and I remembered his name because he looked pretty young. Now this guy, I wrote down Bo, but his actual name is Joe, so I remembered Joe with a bow. Charlie, I remembered just off the top of my head because he just looked like one. Unfortunately, Melvin, that guy's name's not Melvin, so but his name is Mark, but I must have remembered Melvin for some reason. Ralph looked like what's that guy? Ralph from Simpsons. So I just imagine him for some reason. Mary, she was pretty hairy, so I imagine hair all around her earrings. Jimmy, yeah, I associated with Jimmy Fallon for some reason, but yeah, he must have been a stand-up comedy act or something like that. Francisco. Now he reminds me of that dude from The Flash. So if anyone watches the show The Flash, the nerdy guy Francisco, imagine him. Brady, that dude was from the Brady Bunch. Randall, I'm a guitarist, and there's particular amps called Randall amps, so I remembered Randall amps from that. Whoa, recalling too fast. Elliot, I remember from that Mr. Robot TV show, so connected that with him. What else? Lisa from The Simpsons. Lorraine, I had no idea how I remembered, so I was lucky with that one. Jim, that dude was jacked up and he was at the gym all the time, so that's how I remembered him. Trevor, I must have just made something up for Trevor because it's pretty stock standard Australian name. There you go. I try and guess this dude's name again. It's definitely not Melvin. I think I wrote down Marvin or something like that, but the old dude was Marvin in the end. So, but as you can see, what I'm doing is just making associations and stories. So the stronger the stories are, the easier it is to recall. And if the story is not strong, if I just sort of have a hunch or a feeling, I'll probably get that wrong. So the best thing is to make that story memorable. So for example, when I pictured Francisco, as I was mentioning earlier, I pictured his face on the panel on the show, The Flash, and he's talking to the Flash and doing all sorts of cool things. So at this stage, I think I'm just guessing some names, writing them down. Lisa from The Simpsons, I imagine her with that hairstyle. She's flicking her hairstyle around in the cartoons, and she's playing saxophone and gets caught. Her hair gets caught in the saxophone. So these are little things to make to strengthen up the association. Now, I only had a minute, so they're not going to be the greatest stories because you go through the names fairly quickly in a minute. Now, if you had a bit more time, you definitely spend a while making that story a bit stronger. So it is a challenge to try and remember this many names in 1 minute. And you could do so by signing up on memoryleague.com, I think, or .net, something like that. Um, and it's quite fun. You can play around. There's names, there's numbers. I'll try and go through some of my trainings with you, just so you can see how I train and how I make up associations, and you might learn something from it rather than me, teaching you lessons and stuff. This is a ongoing lesson, I guess, from my memorization. So you can look at it that way. That old dude's name was Marvin, so I wrote it for him, unfortunately. But I would have got an extra point there. But you'll see in a moment where once the time runs out, it shows you what you get right or wrong. So that's quite helpful. I'm still waiting for that bit where it gets to the recall. There we go. So as you can see, I've got a few wrong. Um, got Joe with the bow. I memorized the wrong story, so I could have made a better story there. Delissa was difficult. And there you go.